Hello student, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Ajit Jaswal from Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry Central University. Today we are going to discuss about a module entitled Fundamental of Work Physiology under paper Physiological Anthropology. So student, now let's see what we are going to learn in this particular modules. The important objective of these modules are as follows. These particular modules provide introductory information in the field of work physiology. The study of these modules enable the student at postgraduate level to understand the concept of fundamental of work physiology and how it impacts human beings. So now let me give you some introductory information about these modules. According to the archaeological and historical record, human physiology as a kind of discipline started around 420 BC in ancient Greece at the Hippocratic School of Medicine. Hippocrates, of course, around 460 to 370 BC, is considered by many as the father of medicine. He established medicine as a separate discipline, and along with his student, he wrote extensively on physiology. Some believe that Aristotle around 384 BC to around 322 BC, who focused on the relationship between structure and function, was the real pioneer of physiology. Galen, a prominent Greek physician in ancient Rome, dissected animal and became by contemporary standard as expert anatomist and physiologist. He said that monkey that walked on two legs like we do would most probably provide researchers with knowledge that could be applied to human being. Therefore, Galen is known as the founder of experimental physiology. It was not really until the 19th century that physiology started making rapid advancement. Matthias Selden, a German botanist, and Theodor Schaven, a German physiologist, were co-founders of the cell theory. The idea that every living thing is made up of cell, with cell being the basic unit structure of everything that lives. People perform widely different tasks in daily work situations. These tasks must be matched with human capabilities to avoid underloading, in which human capacities are not utilized properly, as well as overloading, which may causes the person to break down and suffer reduced performance capacity or even permanent damage. The meaning of physiology is derived from ancient Greek, meaning it is the scientific study of the normal function in living system. It is a subdiscipline of biology. Its focus is in how organism, organ system, organs, cell and biomolecules carry out the chemical or physical function that exist in a living system. Given the size of the field, it is divided into, or among others, are animal physiology, including that of women, plant physiology, cellular physiology, microbial physiology, or what is called microbial metabolism, bacterial physiology, and viral physiology. Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine is awarded to those who make significant achievement in this discipline since 1901 by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. In medicine, a physiologic state is one occurring from normal body function rather than pathologically which is centered on the abnormalities that occur in animal diseases, including human. Fundamentals of work physiology. Physiology is concerned with work, which include sport physiology, is closely related to environmental physiology. Recent years, the environmental factor with which the organism must cope have become more varied, and work more often be done under difficult environment conditions, that is in extreme climate at high altitude. The study of work physiology is not concerned solely with the physical workload encountered during performance of a job or a sport and their effect on man. The work physiology must devote an even greater part of his attention to such physiological aspect, even the area of sports. When the workload is too great, whatever nature, the body is overstrained and health deteriorates. Human working conditions cannot be established without knowledge of the principle of work physiology. Almost all areas of physiology are involved in this relation. Not only by practical approach can one set up guidelines to work environment or machine for the worker. In this sense, work physiology is a science of optimization in which human well-being is to be optimized. Now let's discuss about the blood parameters during dynamic work. During and after dynamic work, there are many changes occur in the blood. Only occasionally this permit assessment of the degree of physical strain, but they are of special value in laboratory diagnosis. Changes in the blood gas level. When we discuss about the changes in blood gas level during light physical work, a healthy person shows only slight change in arterial carbon dioxide and oxygen partial pressure. Heavy work causes a distinct drop in partial carbon dioxide pressure with no appreciable changes in the PO2. CO2 there is there but not O2. This situation reflects an overshooting increase in ventilation brought about by a lactate base acidosis in blood and muscle. Now when we discuss about changes in blood cell, during physical work, the hematocrit rises. As a result, both of decreased plasma volume owing to greater capillary filtrations and of the release of erythrocytes from their sites of production and increased in the number of leukocytes have also been observed. Similarly, when we see the changes in acid-base status of the blood, during light physical work, at that time it does not affect the acid-base balance for all the additional carbonic acid production is released from the lungs. During heavy work, metabolic acidosis is produced in proportion to the rate of lactate production, which is compensated partially by respiration. However, when you see the changes in the food stuff in the blood, the arterial glucose level of a healthy person hardly changes work. Only when strenuous work is prolonged does the arterial glucose concentration decreases, which is a sign of approaching exhaustion. The blood lactate concentrations on the other hand varies widely with the degree of strain. Depending on the rate of its production in the anaerobically working muscle and the rate of elimination, lactate is broken down by oxidation of non-working skeletal muscle and the myocardium. changes in other substances present in the blood. During exercise, the blood concentration of certain electrolytes and organic substances rises. These changes are explained by changes in the permeability of the muscle membrane, which allows intracellular component to escape into the bloodstream. The return to the initial concentration in some cases require several days. Next is thermoregulation during dynamic work. Sweating is generally recorded as a sign of hard work. The onset of visible sweating is exceeded, whether because of increased heat production during exercise or insufficient heat loss owing to high ambient temperature or humidity, improper clothing or absence of air movement, and finally to heating of the body by excessive thermal radiation. As performances increases, other conditions being equal, the secretion of sweat increases about in proportion to the rectal temperature. Because of the cooling effect of environments, the skin temperature during sweating is lower than in the case of extraglandular water loss. Next point is related to hormonal regulation during dynamic work. Two hormonal systems deserve specific attention in the context of adjustment to work. During physical work, more adrenaline release into the blood. From the adrenal medulla in particular, non-adrenaline is released only in small amounts. Among other actions, adrenaline mobilizes the glycogen and fat deposits, stimulates increased production of cyclic AMP and enhance cardiac activities and the clarity of consciousness. Now let's discuss about the muscle. So the important question arises over here is, what is muscle? Basic function of muscle is to generate force. Secondarily, muscle can provide some shape and form to the organism. Anatomically and functionally, muscle can be divided into two types, that is smooth and straighted. Straighted or stripped muscle can be further divided into skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle, or what we also call is a heart muscle. Regardless of the type, all muscles share some important basic properties like conductivity. Conductivity means a muscle has the ability to conduct an action potential. Then irritability means when stimulated the muscle will react. It also performs the function like contractility, means a muscle can be shortened or produce tension between its end. Then relaxation, a muscle can return to resting position or proportion after contraction. Then distensibility, a muscle can be stretched by a force outside of the muscle itself. And the last one is elasticity, means the muscle will resist elongation and will return to its original position after passive or active elongation. Elasticity is the opposite of distensibility. Smooth muscle and straightened muscle can easily be differentiated from each other in a variety of ways, including appearance. Summary of aerobic metabolism. Aerobic, or what is called as oxygen using metabolism, extract energy from carbohydrate sources, fatty acids and amino acid, while glycolysis yields 2 moles of ATP from 1 mole of glucose. Full oxidation of glucose by aerobic respiration produces around 30 moles of ATP. Aerobic metabolism occurs in three phases. First, carbohydrates are oxidized to carbon dioxide. producing the energy-rich molecules NADH and FADH2. Electrons from NADH and FADH2 are then passes along the electron transport chain to the terminal electron acceptor O2, that is oxygen. The free energy released in electron transport is captured by coupling it to the export of protons across the mitochondrial inner membrane. Finally, the free energy of the electrochemical proton gradient is used to synthesize ATP from ADP, an inorganic phosphate and hydrogen ion, and to export ATP from the mitochondria. Many catabolic pathways, that is carbohydrate, amino acid, fatty acid and ketone body, converge at the TCA cycle. Many anabolic pathways depart from the TCA cycle, including synthesis of fatty acids, amino acid, purine bases, heme, cholesterol, steroid hormones, and ketone bodies. The TCA or tricarboxylic acid cycle provides carbon skeleton in a variety of different oxidation states for these biochemical processes. Anaerobic metabolism. Anaerobic metabolism or aerobic energy expenditure is a natural part of whole body metabolic energy expenditure. Fast twitch muscle as compared to slow twitch muscle operate using anaerobic metabolic system such that any recruitment of fast twitch muscle fibers leads to increased anaerobic energy expenditure. Anaerobic metabolism refers to biological process that produce energy for an organism without using oxygen. It is based on chemical reaction within the body in which carbohydrates are broken down to release chemical energy. This process occurs primarily when an organism needs a sudden short-term burst of energy or during period of intense exertion. This is where anaerobic metabolism is important. When an organism needs to rapidly increase its energy supply, anaerobic metabolism allows it to do so immediately instead of waiting for enough oxygen to fuel increased aerobic metabolism. It can also be used in combination with aerobic metabolism when high energy levels are needed. For example, a human athlete running a short high-speed sprint uses this metabolism to supply himself or herself with a short-term increase in energy, while someone going for an extended leisurely jog will rely on anaerobic metabolism when starting but eventually shift to primarily aerobic metabolism once his or her body has had time to adjust to the increased activity. If an athlete engages in high intensity activity for an extended period of time, both forms of metabolism can be heavily exploited. Now let's discuss about muscle efficiency. Muscle efficiency at work is only about 20%. The rest is lost as heat. This also increases body temperature. Muscle efficiency and thus work rate typically vary by as much as 20 to 30% when comparing individual with low versus high efficiency, despite controlling for oxygen consumption, training status, diet and other factors. This represents a large amount of biological differences between individuals which directly influence physical stress and work productivity. The factor that determine and influence the energy efficiency of human muscle movement is represented by the product of two phenomena. First one, the efficiency with which the chemical energy of glucose and or fat is converted to adenosine triphosphate or ATP through oxidative phosphorylation. And the second one, the efficiency with which the chemical energy of ATP hydrolysis in is converted to work. mitochondrial efficiency was not different in endurance training trained versus untrained individual. This implies that the large differences among individuals in cycling efficiency appear to be due largely to the efficiency of transferring the chemical energy from ATP to ATP hydrolysis into physical work. Even though or although oxidative phosphorylation can have direct influence on cycling efficiency, the author clearly acknowledged that it represents only part of the equation for work or cyclic efficiency. We are left with emerging picture that cycling efficiency appear related to percentage of MHC1 and somehow to UCP3 protein content. This study has made clear the fact that solving this puzzle require use of technique at the molecular and whole body level, both of which can only be interpreted when controlling for the relative work rate. Circulatory system. The circulatory system, also called cardiovascular system, is an organ system that permits blood to circulate and transport nutrients such as amino acid and electrolytes, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, and blood cells to and from the cell in the body to provide nourishment and help in fighting disease, stabilize temperature and pH, and maintain homeostasis. The study of the blood flow is called hemodynamics. The study of the properties of the blood flow is called hemerology. The circulatory system is often seems to comprise both the cardiovascular system, which distribute blood, and the lymphatic system, so the heart beat faster to supply the muscle with more oxygen-rich blood. In turn, the speed of blood flow increases cardiac output. Due to an increase in heart rate and stroke volume to meet demand, cardiac output, what is called as the volume of blood pumped out of the heart in 1 minute, automatically increases. The faster and harder the heart pump, the higher the rate of blood circulation. Venous blood. Venous return in the return of blood to the heart via venules and veins. If this is slow, the volume of blood pumped from the heart with each beat, what is called stroke volume, is lower. This lower cardiac output and reduces blood pressure and flow rate. When we discuss about the venous return or blood returning to the heart, must constitute 3/5 of the blood circulating the body at any time in order to maintain a steady blood flow. At rest, this is not a problem. However, during exercise, the blood pressure in the vein is not high enough to increase the level of venous return and so maintain the higher stroke volume and cardiac output which exercise require. A number of mechanisms are used which help to increase venous return, like pocket valve, which is located within the veins, prevent the backflow of blood and help it towards the heart. Then muscle pump. Many veins are situated between skeletal muscle which when they contract and relax squeeze on the vein and help push the blood back towards the heart. Next one is smooth muscle. The wall of each vein contains smooth muscle which contract to help push the blood back towards the heart. Then respiratory pump. The respiratory pump helps return blood in the thoracic cavity and abdomen back to the heart. While exercising, we breathe faster and deeper, which rapidly changes the pressure within the thorax between high and low to help to squeeze the blood in the area back to the heart. Now, the gravity is also play an important role. Gravity, veins in the upper body are added by the gravity in order to return blood to the heart. Respiratory system. The respiratory system, called also as respiratory apparatus or ventilatory system, is a biological system consisting of specific organs and structure used for the purpose of respiration in an organism. The respiratory system is involved in the intake and exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between an organism and the environment. In air-breathing vertebrates like human beings, respiration takes place in the respiratory organs called lungs. The passage of air into the lungs to supply the body with oxygen is known as inhalation, and the passage of air out of the lung to expel carbon dioxide is known as exhalation. This process is collectively called breathing or ventilation. In human and other mammals, the anatomical feature of the respiratory systems include trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, lungs, and diaphragm. Molecules of oxygen and carbon dioxide are passively exchanged by diffusion between the gaseous external environment and the blood. This exchange process occurs in the alveoli or air sac in the lungs. Red blood cells collect the oxygen from the lungs and carry it to the parts of the body where it is needed. According to the American Lung Association, during the process, the red blood cells collect the carbon dioxide and transport it back to the lungs, where it leaves the body when we exhale. The human body needs oxygen to sustain itself. A decrease in oxygen is known as hypoxia, and a complete lack of oxygen is known as anoxia. And according to Medline Plus, these conditions are be fatal after about 4 minutes without oxygen. Brain cells begin dying according to NYU Langone Medical Center, which can lead to brain damage and ultimately death. In humans, the average rate of breathing is dependent on age. A newborn's normal breathing rate is about 40 minutes each minute and may slow to 20 to 40 times per minute when the baby is sleeping. For adult, the average resting respiration rate for adult is 12 to 16 breaths per minute. According to Johns Hopkins Medicine, physical exertion also has an effect on respiratory rate, and healthy adult can average 45 breaths per minute during strenuous exercise. Now let's discuss about the respiratory capacities like total lung capacity, forced expiratory volume, what we also call as FEV, peak flow, and minute respiratory volume MRV. The total lung capacity is the maximum amount of air lungs can hold, whereas the forced expiratory volume, it is the percentage of vital capacity exhaled per time. It may be any unit. Like for the healthy adult, it is about 75 to 85% in one second. Similarly, peak flow, it explains about the maximum speed of exhalation. Whereas in the case of minute respiratory volume, what we call as MRV, it is TV into a tidal volume into respiratory rate at rest, that is 500 into 12, nearly about 6 liter per minute. Maximum range is about from 125 to 170 liter per minute. Fatigue. Fatigue, also called exhaustion, tiredness, languidness, languor, lassitude, listlessness, is the subjective feeling of a tiredness, which is distinct from weakness and has a gradual onset. Unlike weakness, fatigue can be elevated by a period of rest. Fatigue can have physical or mental causes. Physical fatigue is the transient inability of the muscle to maintain optimal physical performance and is made more severe by intense physical exercise. Mental fatigue is a transient decrease in maximal cognitive performance resulting from prolonged period of cognitive activity. It can manifest as somnolence, lethargy, or directed attention fatigue. Medically, fatigue is a non-specific symptom, which means that it has many possible causes. Fatigue is considered a symptom rather than a sign because it is a subjective feeling reported by the patient rather than objective one that can be observed by others. Fatigue and feeling of fatigue are often confused. Physical fatigue. Physical or muscular fatigue is the temporary physical inability of a muscle to perform optimally. The onset of muscular fatigue during physical activity is gradual and depends upon an individual's level of physical fitness and also upon other factors such as sleep deprivation and overall health. It can be reversed by rest. Physical fatigue can be caused by a lack of energy in the muscle, by a decrease of the efficiency of the neuromuscular junction, or by a reduction of the deprived origination from the central nervous system. The central component of fatigue is triggered by an increase of the level of serotonin in the central nervous system. During motor activities, serotonin release in the synapses that contact motor neurons promotes muscle contraction. During high level of motor activity, the amount of serotonin released increases and a spillover occurs. Serotonin binds to extrasynaptic receptors located on the axon initial segment of motor neurons, with the result that nerve impulse initiation and thereby muscle contraction is inhibited. Muscle strength testing can be used to determine the presence of neuromuscular disease, but cannot determine its etiology. Additional testing such as electromyography can provide diagnostic information, but information gained from muscle strengthening alone is not enough to diagnose most neuromuscular disorder. Musculoskeletal structures may have co-evolved with their corresponding brain structure in a way that allow them to adapt to environmental conditions. People with multiple sclerosis experiences a form of overwhelming lassitude or tiredness that can occur at any time of the day for any duration and that does not necessarily recur in a recognizable pattern for any given patient, referred to as neurological fatigue. Mental fatigue is a temporary inability to maintain optimal cognitive performance. The onset of mental fatigue during any cognitive activity is gradual and depends upon an individual's cognitive ability and also upon other factors such as sleep deprivation and overall health. Okay dear, now let's discuss about the conclusive informations about this module. It is a need that one has to aware of how our physiology reacts to work, how human system and organs react and respond to any work, with given deeper understanding on how people can prepare themselves well to increase the efficiency of their body function. As the body is designed to adapt to changes and demand with reasonable efficiency even for a person with inactive lifestyle. Only when our body is pushed to the limit or to the extreme, it breaks down or ceases to function. So, my dear friends, dear student, now let's try to summarize the important points that we have discussed in this important modules. The subject of work physiology is connected with how various organ and system in a human body react to changes in the environment that surrounded them and the activity that they engaged in. The human body is designed to adapt to various demands placed on it from time to time, and is likely to completely break down only in extreme cases. This ability to respond and adapt to different situations is what make our bodies very unique. But the efficiency of such adaptation will differ from person to person, depending on his health, fitness and attitude. How our system react and adapt to exercises have been discussed individually, and also the fundamental function of our physiology too have been presented in this modules. The chemical reaction and the changes that actually trigger the larger function in the blood and hormones were also discussed in this particular modules. Thank you.